So now we have another keynote, and we will welcome Anne-Laure Linger. The other keynote title is New Paradigm, New Challenges, How to Comply with this New Era. Nouveau paradigme, nouveau challenge, comment s'adapter à l'époque. I guess you can join me on stage.
Okay, so let's start, and you will see the goal of this keynote is to be, let's say, straight to the point. I will share with you a couple of data, interesting data regarding sourcing, import, export, and like a different strategy company took in order to secure their ROI. I was like highly appreciate the previous conversation, previous conference, talking about ROI, and yes, sustainability. Clearly, we have to take in account in order to secure our business and to secure our ROI. So, what we're going to do? First of all, a kind of like where we are in terms of sourcing, import, exports, and you will see we can find lots of interesting, let's say, move, especially regarding like European imports and US imports, especially with like latest announcement of Trump, for example. Secondly, challenge and projection, how we can anticipate the future shock points. And lastly, and it has been like a request from the trade show, how supplier can view like the EU Green Deal, how we can, is it like different from one country to another, and clearly how we can help them to achieve their goal and finally our goal. First of all, I like this kind of graph. It shows you everything. Like we have like the 14 view about the export situation, and you see like the enormous like power or let's say size of China compared to rest of the country. And clearly, even if we have like a strong decrease for the last 3 years, because we've got like data for 2024. Yes, like China is really above in terms of export, and we are talking about more than 100 exports. Then let's focus a little bit more about rest of the country, because it's great to talk about China, but how about the rest of country? I'm sure most of you, especially in Europe, we are stunned to see, I mean, the size of Vietnam compared to Bangladesh, because we consider like Vietnam as, let's say, the 4th or the 5th country in terms of imports. But when we are like looking at Bangladesh exports, you see that they are almost at the same level. And clearly, of course, we have to remove like what happened in 2022, like this kind of craziness regarding inflation. But you see, I mean, really the size of this country. Then we have Cambodia. Cambodia, we thought, okay, if because of like the shaking situation with the free trade agreement with Europe, I mean, we're going to have like a kind of step back regarding Cambodia export. But this is absolutely not the case. And clearly, yes, we have like the COVID period here. But Cambodia, like export, is doing really, really well nowadays. You will see in the US and in Europe as well. India is super flat, but let's say that we might have a kind of wake-up call from India regarding the US market, as US is considered like India like a kind of friend, and we are talking about friendshoring, which is super trendy nowadays. We're going to talk about that later on. Pakistan is like rising quite a lot as well. It seems to be flat, but I can tell you it's rising, especially in Europe and again in US. Myanmar, of course, we have like a huge step back of Myanmar because of the political situation. And what I would like also to talk about when we're talking about this graph is the size of Turkey, which is like clearly like super flat this last 4 or 5 years, due to mainly the inflation period, and so the exports are clearly decreasing. Export are clearly decreasing. Egypt is also doing well, and they're also investing quite a lot recently in promotion. So we have a kind of new interest regarding sourcing in Egypt. So here I just did a kind of calculation about all the data we've seen. So you see here we have like China in blue. In red, we have like Asia except China. So when I'm talking about Asia except China, we're talking about, of course, India, Bangladesh, Pakistan, Cambodia, Laos, Indonesia, well, all of them. And what is interesting is we were pretty sure in 2019 we would Asia will be higher than like China, but finally it was not the case because of like the shaking situation we faced. We or all the world during this period, and so finally, who benefit most of this period is China, and now we have like the gap is bigger than it was, and here. This is Euromed, so we are talking about Turkey, we are talking about Morocco, Tunisia, and Egypt. Let's now focus on what happened in Europe and like latest data we have from Europe side. So yeah, I know I love to put lots of data, my bad, but thankfully I've got like only 10 slides to share with you. So for this one, first of all, the first lecture we could have is, like you see the size of China compared to Bangladesh, there is no so much differences clearly within these two. Then again, we have like a huge step back of Turkey, -7. And why we have -7? Okay, it's great that you are taking picture. I highly appreciate it. And the goal is we're going to exchange with all this data afterwards. So -7 due to inflation and like the rising inflation, more than 150%. Then in green, for me, all these countries are super interesting for European market now, and we have to focus on that. Like India, Vietnam, Cambodia, Pakistan, Morocco, all of them are clearly take benefit from like the step back or the flat situation in China, and also that this summer, of course, we had like a kind of shaking situation in Bangladesh, and so many brands now understood that it is more than necessary to divide the risk and to outsource somewhere else. And some of them, they were like sourcing in China and in Bangladesh and said, okay, we have to find an alternative. This is super urgent. This is why I'm talking about all these countries like India, Vietnam, Cambodia plus 20%, super amazing as a result. Pakistan plus 7%, and Morocco plus 7% as well. So, and yes, one also interesting point is we have like a decrease in value of 2%, but not in volume. Volume, we are around 4%. So we even import more in terms of volume compared to last year. And what happened nowadays, we have a kind of resilience regarding the supply chain. Price of cotton decreased. So we were able, I'm saying we as a European importer, to import on a more, let's say, reasonable price as we did last year or the year before. Here, let's focus on US apparel, and then we're going to see also different strategy we could have. This is also super crazy. Here we are talking about 2014. You see the size of China at that time, roughly 30, and size of Vietnam. And you see nowadays they are almost, we have like only 1.5 billion between the two of them. So clearly the situation is totally changing super fastly. I mean, in USA, even if it started in 2018, as I said. And yes, we have like also the kind of concept of friendshoring. Friendshoring means pushing like company to source into friend countries, such as India, such as Vietnam, etc. And this situation will even be, I'm sure like Vietnam will be the first country for the next season. We have like only 1.5 billion, it's like pretty nothing. And Bangladesh is playing well as well. Huh? Yeah, you see the green one is Bangladesh. Bangladesh is clearly rising. And nowadays, now let's see how much we could have. So yeah, I put maybe too many countries. Huh? I was maybe a little bit too inspired by this, but I wanted to put like a French export as well, even if we have like minus 17% regarding our export for US apparel. So first lecture, you see that, okay, even if like US is, China is still the first one, you see that, as we said on the previous graph, the gap is super narrow. Then we have like only 1%. I was quite surprised by this 1% increase only for Bangladesh. I could expect a little bit more. 5% for India, and this is why I said, okay, be careful about India, because India is clearly, let's say, investing a lot in spinning, etc., and also they export in US is clearly booming. 14% regarding Cambodia. Like Cambodia is like really exploding regarding exports, even if it is like a small country. We have to take in account that like this country is super small compared to Vietnam, and sometimes. I mean, what we used to do in Europe is to consider that they are almost at the same size. No, I mean, in terms of population, inhabitants, it's totally not the same. What is also interesting in this graph, you see like Mexico -6, Honduras -4. Clearly, all South African countries are clearly suffering from this situation. And interesting part also, like Egypt and Thailand are also booming in terms of export. So all this kind of data are quite interesting because it will allow us to understand where we should source and how we can secure our future orders. And also, last point is where we could face some issue. So I make a kind of quick recap. So let's start with the funniest one. No, it's not the funniest one, but the last one, like 10% additional tariff for USA. It's going to be like a nightmare for global brand and Chinese suppliers, this is for sure. But it could be like an opportunity for European brands because we might find finally some capacity for European brands. So this is something we have to take in account. How about taking this as an opportunity? And one strategy could be, for example, to source in Peru, part of the production. For example, I've got some brands. They are selling a lot in Peru. We know that we might have like additional custom duties from Europe to US. So they decided, okay, let's put 20-30% of our production for core product in Peru. In this way, we can secure our ROI. Then we have Vietnam, Indonesia, and India friendshoring. So I was talking about that previously. So we have a real push and kind of incentive to relocate US production in those areas. So we might face a lack of capacity for Europe. The problem is when we as a European buyer, we try to place some orders, we are always after American orders because we are like much smaller in terms of volume. So we have a risk of shock point and also, especially on dyeing step. The dyeing part is clearly super crucial for two things. First of all, because this is like a real bottleneck, and without dyeing source, you are dead. And secondly, in terms of environmental footprint, so we talked about product carbon footprint, but let's talk about environmental footprint. Dyeing part is the worst part. It is where we can really change things in terms of sustainability. When I working with suppliers or brands, the first things we work on is how about clean up the dyeing source, how about securing also this part. Rocking summer situation in Bangladesh. Nowadays, situation is stable, but it's quite fragile. So, of course, we need to go for our dual sourcing. And it's what I observed these past few months, is everybody was in the plane to let's say, find some alternative sourcing. North Africa, South Asia, even Eastern Europe was also was in the roadmap in order to find, let's say, a third part. Yeah, I can see you glance. Ooh, Europe and Eastern Europe. I can tell you, I was surprised myself, and but this is something we have to take in account. Luckily, finally, we have like a stabilization regarding the inflation. This is a super good point, and we have like also a stabilization regarding our inflation regarding imports for textile. Price of cotton decrease, stability regarding the polyester price, and also like transportation situation is a little bit better now. Panama and Suez Canal. Yeah, this is like, I had this one yesterday because we have like the announcement of Trump regarding I will definitely control the Suez Canal, this is mine, blah, blah, blah. And clearly this is like a super, super interesting shock point to focus on. Like lots of trade are through this canal. And we have also the Suez Canal like a disturbance last year. Clearly, we have to integrate and reorganize our supply chain to avoid all this kind of thing. And what we advise is clearly how we can divide the production in a couple of steps. Massifying fabric, dye at the last minute, and even produce on demand. It's more and more what we have to do in order to match all these kind of uncertainty, shock points, and risk. Traceability. Yeah, traceability deadline, because nowadays we have to comply with certain law. We have in France already a couple of laws, and we took advance compared to, let's say, our neighbor. But nowadays it's time for everybody. The end of 2025 will be like the wake-up call in order to trace the supply chain, to calculate the carbon footprint, the environmental footprint, and clearly, this is something we have to talk about. So one point is, yeah, how about working with verticalized setup, or at least setup which are controlling the dyeing part? I know I am pushing a lot on that, but I face so many issues during disruption of the supply chain because of the dyeing part. And again, I face issue with how to make it sustainable. I can tell you this is how we can, the first point we have to work on. Did I talk about, and yes, alternative supply chain we didn't talk about. What I've seen also is in order to avoid all this kind of US threats and whatsoever, some company, they already redo all their sourcing, excluding like Chinese supplier for even tier 2, tier 3, which it was quite amazing for me. Just to secure it. And some of them, they even thinking about how to do the assembly in the US. So clearly, a company which are like selling quite a lot in the US have to work on this kind of, let's say, alternative scenario just to secure their business. Yeah, this is, I mean, we had like a beautiful presentation regarding recent regulatory change in the EU. So I try to sum up the situation here. What I would like now to focus on is how all these rules are viewed by supplier. Oh, no, sorry, up. I forgot I had like this one, which is quite interesting. Thank you to Textile Exchange. So they are sharing the volume of recycled fabric we have and we are currently using. So What is quite interesting to take in account that only 1% of the global fiber came from pre- and post-consumer recycled fabric. So when we're talking about recycled fiber, in fact, we're talking about, most of the time, we're talking about PET bottle. So only 1% of our global fiber market is made really with pre- or post-consumer fabric. So 64% of recycled fabric are made with like polyester. This is a famous recycled polyester. Virgin polyester is even bigger than it was. And we had a slight reduction of the percentage, the market share of recycled polyester. Regarding cotton, what is interesting regarding cotton? So 28% of the cotton could be now sustainable. Because I'm sure you know what happened. Everybody said, oh, I want a sustainable product. Put whatever you want in it, but I want it sustainable. How about BCI? How about recycled pre-consumer cotton? How about recycled polyester? I don't care, or even organic, I don't care, but I want a sustainable attribute. It's what I heard many times. So what is great is 28% of could be considered as sustainable thanks to better cotton, like fair trade, BCI, all this kind of thing. And only 1% of the cotton are for pre or post-consumer. So meaning that pre-consumer means before like consumer we are going to use a product, meaning during spinning stage, during let's say weaving or knitting, then wastage are reused in order to redo yarn. So this is what we called cotton pre-consumer, recycled cotton pre-consumer. So clearly interesting to see this situation. And as you see, we have almost only 1 to 2% of the total fiber which are from, let's say, the field. So there is like huge improvement to do. But what I really believe in is how we can make fabric more durable. This is how we will make things much more sustainable. And to conclude, to make a kind of conclusion, this is like what we heard from supplier side when we're talking about sustainability. Brand asked me to declare my supply chain, but I have no clue, neither my converter, where my filament have been made. Super current. Okay, we have like supplier. We ask them many details about data, production, etc. But in fact, sometimes they don't have like lots of. They don't have like all the data because the converter is not showing them all the data. And this is something we have to work on, is how we can solve this part. Retailer asked me to persuade my fabric supplier to fulfill data from per style in the platform. You know that in order to trace the supply chain, we have a couple of ways to do it. One way is to do it bottom to top, meaning that we go from the order, from the style, and we ask the supplier to fulfill all the data. Then the supplier is supposed to ask his fabric supplier to fulfill the data on the platform, and the yarn, or the spinner, for example, is supposed to fulfill the data. But what happened? Most of the time, the weaving supplier or even the knitter, they don't have any clue about how to work with this platform. It's a nightmare for him. So it's almost impossible to push them to spend like half a day to fulfill all of the data. So we really have to redo things in the opposite way. And what we found is finally working with TC, transaction certificate, is maybe the easiest way to follow the supply chain. It's what we do. So, for example, I said paper is our new nightmare. So to match Inditex expectation, some company, they had to hire like one guy dedicated to fulfill the platform Join Knife, and to link all the different TC with the right style. So clearly, but thankfully, yeah, they've got the TC certificate to follow all this mess. But this is something we have to take in account. We have, what do we have? Yeah, sometimes there is like some tricky question. Oh, by the way, how much kilometers electricity or kilowatt are you using per pieces? Clearly, it is impossible for a company, a supplier, to give this data. So we have to help them to achieve and to be able to provide the right data. And also, we have to advise them how we can be more sustainable. How about biomass? How about solar panel? All this kind of thing. But we have to spend time in training, working together in workshop, etc. Otherwise, it's impossible. And one last is, sometimes we have like the combo. Oh, let's do it fully sustainable. 25% recycled cotton, 25% recycled polyester, and the rest could be BCI. This is, in this way, I agree with the other keynotes, is we're not focusing on how much pollution we are currently creating, but we're focusing on which kind of labels we could highlight on the product. So it's a little bit sad to work like this. So I think I'm finished regarding what we heard from supplier side. And what I wish now is to have all your questions and to exchange with you. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. It's crazy the work you've done to share all those data with us. I'm so sorry because we start really early because of me. So we have a lot of time for questions. So please ask your questions to Anne-Laure. I'm sure you have questions.
Don't be shy.
Yes.
Yeah, hello, good morning. Thank you for the presentation. You did not mention any Black Africa suppliers such as Ethiopia, Kenya, Rwanda, who are apparently starting to be big suppliers. Do you have data about them?
Okay, this is a good question. I was mentioning Egypt because clearly mentioning is back to the game right now. Ethiopia, I'm looking closely about Ethiopia for 10 years now, but it's quite slow, and the main issue with Ethiopia is that they are lacking like components, like zipper, like accessories, like even plastic, and so the supply chain is not so easy. So it's great if you have like a very simple product, like a T-shirt, and you have like working price. This is true in Ethiopia, but when you want to go a little bit further, then it's not. They are facing the problem that they are far from China regarding accessories. Let's say it this way. Yeah.
Thank you. Any other question? Yes?
Thank you, Anne-Laure. I have two questions. On Eastern Europe, you said very rightly that Romania exports are falling.
Yeah.
So does it mean that it is the other Eastern countries like Bulgaria and etc. are going up? So.
Okay, yeah, good question. So clearly, for let's say a couple of years now, it was not so trendy to source in Eastern Europe. Now we have to relocate partly our sourcing to divide the risk, to have kind of super efficient supply chain when we have to deliver super quickly. And we have also to find alternative with Turkey. Turkey is super expensive now because of the inflation. So what happened? I can see that a couple of brands are now looking again on different like Eastern country. You was talking about Bulgaria. This is true. How about North European country? Like let's say Lithuania, Latvia, all this kind of country, which are not so famous, but now due to the shaking situation with the supply chain, the different shock point, it might relevant to look again about this direction.
And my second question was my surprise about the small gap between Vietnam and China and the US.
Yeah.
And I was wondering whether it was real figures or it was because China was implanting itself in Vietnam and therefore using Vietnamese caution to be exporting to the US.
Okay, good point. Clearly, I was even surprised myself to see this small gap, as you said. And so my understanding is nowadays in Vietnam, they really verticalized the supply chain. They invested 2 years back, 3 years back into filament industry, all this kind of thing. And so now they're ready to export. I was discussing with one supplier from Vietnam yesterday and said, okay, I'm going to be there and we're going to talk about Asian sourcing. What is your lecture? And he said, previously we were like, more expensive compared to China because they were they had all the supply chain in their country. But for the last 2 or 3 months, we are almost at the same level because the wages maybe in China increase more than our region. So you have this point is, first of all, we have like a bigger gap. Now we have a smaller gap in terms of like a purchasing price, China compared to Vietnam. And secondly, my understanding is Cambodia is like the, let's say, the favorite place for Chinese investor. And they do lots of cutting, stitching there. Wages are lower than in Vietnam. And I'm thinking that this is the main target of Chinese industrial. Yeah.
Thank you. Other questions?
Please. No?
Anyone?
Nobody?
Okay, so I guess it was pretty clear. Anyway, you can also this afternoon be with us for the roundtable Sustainable Sourcing and Challenges with Asia, and Anne-Laure will be also in the panel. So if we want to go deeper on this specific region, it will be this afternoon. Okay, so I guess you can continue the conversation together with our speakers around the coffee. Thank you so much.
Thank you.